Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha. I was just pressing record.
Yes. Oh, awesome. So yeah, first of all, thank you so much for coming on tonight to share your wisdom with us. Celine, we've got a lot of new people on tonight, so we're so blessed to have Celine as a mentor. She has been successful in this business several times over, so she's got a lot of wisdom to share with us. She's also a wife and a mum first, so I know that she is amazing at managing her time. And when I'm always chatting to my team, most of my team personally are mums. But I'm sure I speak for everyone that, sometimes with Juice Plus, we feel challenged or overwhelmed due to our time management. So after chatting to some, I was going to say staff, they're not staff, some team, that we're in overwhelm mode, I knew exactly who to go to. So Celine, maybe you can start before, I know you're going to jump right into it, but maybe you can just share a snippet of your story so that we know that you definitely know how we feel.
Absolutely, I'd love to. And thank you, Kira and Adam, for having me. I was very blessed to be spoiled by them on Friday night with a beautiful home-cooked meal. So I really appreciate you guys. So it was lovely. So a little bit about me. So I have been in this industry for 30 years now. I started when I was really, really young, okay? God bless Juice Plus, but 22 years full time. And the reason why I actually decided that I would go from just dabbling and messing around to actually doing something was that I started having some children. We had 2 under 2. I went back to work when both of our first 2 were only 3 months old, and that was basically because I suppose my dream of being able to have that balance was kind of a little bit taken away with interest rates going through the roof and hitting 19%. And so my maternity leave as such, because we didn't have paid maternity leave back then, was 3 months I went back to work. So I did know that I kind of really looked at it and thought there's got to be something different, but I didn't see a way out. And I was just so blessed that one of my friends in direct selling said to me, well, what if you could actually do something different? I won't go into the full story, but after having a little bit of a pity party and whatever, I decided, well, why not? So for me, I made a decision that I would give it a really, really strong yes for 12 months and see what actually happened. There was a couple of little things, I suppose, that were in my way at the beginning, and one was my ego. I actually had quite a good career. I was working in merchant banking and so I went through that whole thing about, well, what will people say? And the second thing was my belief on whether I could actually do it. Having a full-time job, that didn't go away. I still did that. And having 2 children under 2, I couldn't give them away. No one was going to take them. I realized that I would actually have a reasonably big job with me. So that was when I decided head down, bum up. And it was probably during that period, and then also when I actually gave myself the best present ever, which was that following Christmas, resigning from that office job. Those babies now, might I add, are 24 and 22. And we did add a third one in to the mix because the back seat of the car wasn't full, and he's now 6'4" and 19. So I definitely had my hands full, and I can probably relate to many of you when I was chit-chatting with Kira about this call. She was sharing some of your stories, some of you that have little ones and are also trying to build a business. And whether you're a mother or a father, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you've got life and everything else that throws at you, plus beautiful family that you want to actually be able to balance in that mix, can make it a little bit challenging. So I'll just share a little bit about what it was that I suppose that I did. The first thing was that I learned to work in what we would sometimes call stolen moments. So I learned to make sure that I had commitments around when I would actually put my hat on and do it. And sometimes that was a case of just grabbing it when one of the kids would go down for a sleep or that. I would actually kind of make sure I already had my list of the priority jobs that I needed to do in my business. So prioritizing that early on was really, really important, because believe you me, the chance of getting 2 of them down at the same time for any period of time was an absolute, that would have been godsend in itself. So I needed to know that as soon as that was going to happen, I was ready to move into action. So I would actually prioritize the things that I was going to do. And for me, that priorities came on along the lines of, if I had calls to do, and remember, we get paid to talk. So if they went down for a sleep, what I was not going to do was do some paperwork. What I was not going to do was pretty up a flyer. What I was not going to do was stamp some literature. That's all things that can be done when there's kids running around making lots of noise. Okay, the things that we do and we get paid for is for talking to people. So as soon as that was that gap, I already had my list of who I was ringing, and that phone would be lifted up. So that would be the first thing that I always did. It was that priority task. And how did I prioritize those? Even my calls then were prioritized, insofar as that the first people that I would call would be people that maybe I was wanting to offer the opportunity or the gift of this business to. They're those first ones, because I always look at it, the fact that if somebody comes along, decides to join our mission, the beautiful thing about that is that they're already then a customer. If they're not already a customer beforehand, they become a customer. And of course, they're probably going to introduce a few customers. So that's a high paying activity for me, introducing somebody into our business. Even if that was all they did, the reality is that they're going to be a customer for a long time. So it was, the first one was the potential new team members, was that first call that I would make. The second call I would make then would be to potential customers. Okay, so if there was that I was doing. The next one then was follow-up calls on either number 1 and number 2. So in other words, I was working my grid, and many of you would have heard about the grid. And then the next ones after that would be to phone team members, to follow up with team members. So that's actually how I would prioritize those calls. And I would generally get through them over the course of a day, or maybe they might have to go into the next day. But for the most part, as soon as there was a gap, that was the first thing that I would do. So for me, it was about looking at, well, what are some of the other little strategies that I could do? So first of all, working in stolen moments. That was really important to me. The second thing then was about, I suppose I still do to this day, I learned to work in 30-minute blocks. So if I'm going to work on a project, it actually gets 30 minutes of concentrated time. So of course, you know, as the kids started to kind of get a little bit older, I could actually have those blocks of times, whether it was a case that we're going down for a nap, or whether it was a case that I had, you know, we had a program that they would do. Play school was always a great one. I knew I had at least 30 minutes where I was actually going to be able to get some activity in there and that. So I would actually work in my 30-minute blocks. And now occasionally, even now, as I said, I will work in 30-minute blocks, or I'll mark out maybe 2 sections of that to actually do on a particular project. But if I'm down to make phone calls, the thing that I will do then is shut down the email. Nowadays, shut down the Facebook, everything else, not have the notifications popping up, so that you're actually not distracted. It's amazing what you can achieve in 30 minutes of undistracted work than what it can sometimes take, you know, hours to do. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I know sometimes that if I have, say, Facebook open or the emails open, and I'm trying to do something, and that little envelope or that little message pops up, you can't help yourself. You go to look and just have a little, and then you go, oh, I'll just check what they were saying. And I don't know what it is about social media, but my gosh, it makes an hour disappear in, I'm sure it only seems like you've been looking at it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you look at the top of the clock and you go, oh my God, that's 45 minutes later, and all I've been doing is scrolling through social media. So by not having those little alarms or little things pop up, it means that you're not distracted. So what you are focusing on is what you actually complete. A couple of other things that I actually put in place too is, I'm speaking now, I suppose, to the parents of young little ones as well. I had what we called, it was like a toy box, but it was kind of mum's work basket. It went up on the top shelf, and it was always an extra little bit of a surprise in there. So there was, you know, there was new movies, there was colouring in boxes, there might be a Kinder Surprise. There was always something new and exciting that I was adding into that little box. That box only came down when mummy was actually working. So that was the box that would come down. Now, that just meant that they actually got to play with the stuff that was in there only when I was doing calls, and only, of course, if they behaved themselves. Okay, if they decided they were going to play up, well, that actually got taken away and put back up. So there was a little bit of bribery and corruption that went on. It works right to this day. It still works. And so, don't be afraid to do those things. We can get really guilty as parents when we kind of think, oh, I'm just going to put them in front of the telly for a few minutes while I go and make some phone calls. And we feel really guilty about the fact that we're using the television or whatever like that as a babysitter. It's not about, doing that. It's about how often do we do that. There's got to be that balance. So, of course, I did. I'll be the first one to admit, like, one of their favorite movies that I used to get lots and lots of airplay out of, and I knew that they would, I would get at least a good 45 minutes, even to an hour, was Jungle Book. Now I'm aging myself, really. So, and there would be that I knew that I was going to get that done. But then what we would do is we would go off and do something together. So for me, the benefit, the payoff was that I was not going to use my kids as an excuse as to why I didn't build my business. They were my reason why, but there had to be balance. So just because I was home with children didn't mean that then the only time I was going to actually get to work was overnight time or whatever. I needed to be able to have that balance. But the great thing about it was I could sit down, do an hour's work while they were watching, say, a program, etc., and then we would go off and do something together. That was so much more beneficial than what my old life was, which was dropping them off at childcare between 7 and 7:30 in the morning, picking them up between 5:30 and 6 o'clock of an evening time, bringing them home, washing them, bathing them, putting them to bed, and then doing exactly the same thing the next day. So there is these payoffs that we need to actually be really conscious of and being aware of. So what was the other thing? So the toy box was the other thing. As they were growing up then, as, each age, because each year kind of things do get, I'm not going to say that they get easier, they just get different. Because with our three, they were all involved in sport, in Girls Guides, all sorts of things like that. And myself and my husband, Mick, who some of you have met, were actually always very involved in all of those sports things as well. So we would actually, spend a lot of time at sports clubs. So it was just different. I did have more flexibility during school hours when they started to go to school, but there were still those other commitments. I just made sure that those things went into my diary, and then I would have things like my grid with me. So my grid, for example, is my 30 squares. It was like my funnel. I knew who I was always talking to. So if I was sitting in the schoolyard waiting for school pickup, my grid would come out and I would see how many phone calls I could make during that time. Again, you get really, really good at being able to compress time and doing stuff, in short bursts where you get a lot of productivity out of it. So that was something else that I would do. The other thing too was that we actually looked at when we would speak as a family, we spoke about it being our business rather than my business or Mummy's work. We actually talked about it being our business, and we did that from quite early on, which meant that if I was going through a season that it was going to be exceptionally busy, so maybe I was going for promotion or something like that, we'd actually be talking about what we were going to actually achieve. And so we'd actually set some goals that they would put up on the fridge. Now that changed things quite dramatically from having teary kids, maybe if I was going out to do an event, to actually having kids that would kind of, kick me out the door and go get it and then ask me what the results were the next morning. And it was actually quite fun. Why? Because they knew that there was actually something in it for them as well. So it became our business rather than just Mum's job. And I think that's actually really important. And I encourage, especially parents, well, actually all of you, whether you're parents or not, I encourage you to make sure that you celebrate every promotion, no matter how big or how small that is. Because in the whole process of that, if you're including your family in that as well, it becomes quite exciting. They get to understand when there are going to be those manic times where we put our head down and we just go for it because we're pushing for a challenge, and we get to do that together. And I think that that's actually really, really important. I just want to touch on so my business. I'm going to just share my screen because I just put a few little notes on here that I actually just want to show you guys. Let me just find that. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. Where's that Word document gone? That's not it. Where did it go? Hang on a second. Don't you love technology? That's my little keeping me on track there with all my bits and pieces. Oh, here it is down here. Okay, alrighty. So if I bring that one up here. Oh, no, hang on. I'll keep talking about it anyhow. Once I find it, it'll be on here in a second. There we go. So one of the things I want to touch on as well when it comes to overwhelm. what I've noticed in my life is that when I feel like I've actually gotten into overwhelm, it generally means that something in one of these 4 quadrants, and hopefully somebody will give me a thumbs up there. Can you actually see my screen? Kieran, Adam, I can see you guys. Yeah, cool. Alrighty. So this is something that I've used even, for myself, but also with my coaching clients over the years. And then if I ever feel myself going into overwhelm, it generally means that there's something in one of these quadrants that's actually out of whack. And balance is one of those things that's actually, it's really relative to different people. There's no such thing as 25% in each of these quadrants or anything at all like that. What it does mean is that you're making sure that there's something happening in each of them. So health and well-being, well, that's self-explanatory. Okay, health and well-being is about making sure that you're putting something in that is about looking after you. Okay, the healthier we are, the more energy we actually have, and the more you are actually going to be able to, really look after yourself. You're going to be able to be much more productive. The second one, though, is one of the most important ones when it comes to maintaining balance and productivity in your life. Now, when I say relationships, that's your love relationship, that's your kids' relationship, it's your friends' relationship. Where we can get into overwhelm is when we feel that all we are doing is actually maybe working on our business, and we actually are not sewing into some of these other areas. So have you got that date night in? Is it something that you actually have in the diary? You're making sure that you're putting it in. And it could be that it's, once a week, once a month, whatever. You need to make sure that that's actually in there, looking after that relationship. Because when you are building a business and you're also a parent with little kids as well, honestly, what can often happen in my experience has been, is that your love relationship can actually kind of, really start to bear the brunt, I suppose, of not having enough time. Making sure you're putting that date time in. Now, the date time could be, guys, that the kids have gone to bed and you actually sit down, no telly on, and you actually just, have a nice dinner together. It doesn't have to be something that you're spending a lot of money on. And to be honest, myself and Mick, early on in the piece, we didn't have, babysitters that we could actually just drop kids to. All our families are on the other side of the world. So one of the important things is making sure that we just had that time out. Now, there's a couple of rules when it comes to relationship dates, okay? The first one is no work talk and no kid talk. Now, oftentimes people say to me, what are we going to talk about? So the first couple can be really, really interesting when there's a little bit of silence. And it's actually about, getting back to what are your goals about. And I know for some of you that are working together within the business, your goals may be business. But it's about not falling into the trap that that's the only thing you talk about. Your business gives you the tools and the facilities and, I suppose, the financial freedom to be able to live out some of those other goals. So what is that about? Why did you fall in love with that person in the first instance? So making sure that you're sewing into it. The next one then are those kids, your kids ones. Again, we can, feel like that we're working, and so we can get a little bit of the guilt thing around that. But if we're sewing into the relationships in a really, really special way, so in other words, for us, with the 3 kids, one of the things that I implemented early on was, especially when they started school, was during the school holidays, we had a date day. So each of the kids would actually have a date day, and I would do something with them that was just about them. So they would get to choose and whatever. And that went right through high school, right through until they actually left school. And it was quite funny. When Shane actually had left school and I was organising with Dan his date day for the next school holidays, Shane actually said to me, what about me? And I said, oh, you're not at school anymore. And he said, still want my date day. So it's really quite cute. So even now as our kids are older, 24, 22 and 19, it's still really lovely and very special to me to actually spend that one-on-one time with them. And again, that makes things so much easier than when you actually need to put your head down and focus on your business. The third one there is spirituality. That's whatever it is for anybody. I call it my soul time. That is really about what gives you joy, what energizes you. So it could be a walk in the park. It could be being able to sit down by the water. It could be going for a massage. It could be prayer, meditation, yoga, whatever it might be. We all have something that recharges our batteries. Why is that important? When your batteries are recharged, you are so much more effective in your business. And the 4th quadrant is career and business. And it's the 4th quadrant for a reason, guys, because even if it is only just something little that's going on in each of the other quadrants, if there is something going on, you will be so much more effective in that fourth quadrant. So, for example, if I feel like last week I'd had a busy couple of weeks, I was heading off and I wasn't going to be back home till the Saturday. And I was just feeling that little bit off kilter, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And I realized that I needed to actually put some time in, book in a massage for myself, which I then did, and it was in the diary, and actually needed to put some friend time in, which again I did. Now, it doesn't matter, like the date with my girlfriend is like, you know, a couple of weeks away. Another one is actually when I get back from overseas. By virtue of the fact that it's actually in the diary, straight away my energy changed. It doesn't matter when it was actually happening. It was the fact that I actually had taken the time to sow into myself. That took me out of overwhelm, back feeling grounded, and actually back in control. And that's really all that overwhelm was about. So, okay, many of you might kind of go, oh, okay, you know, I'm very, very busy and I don't know if I'm going to, you know, I don't know how I will fit anything else in or how I'd actually be able to put any of that in. Honestly, guys, every one of us can. It's just about making choices. So I say here that balance is different things to different people, but what it actually comes back down to is what we choose to prioritize. So how do we know what's going on in our lives? How do we really get it? Because I know there's probably many of us that are on this call that are busy being busy, but not busy being productive. Okay, that we actually think that we are busier than what we truly actually are. So one of the things that I suggest, and I do it at least once a year myself, sometimes if I'm finding that I am out of kilter, I'll actually even do it twice a year. But when I had my coaching practice, any clients who actually wanted to work with me had to do this. This was the first exercise that they actually got. And it's called a time audit. And basically for 10 to 14 days, you write down everything from the time you rise out of bed till the time you go to bed. Sounds painful, I know, but you just carry a little notebook around with you and you start to just jot down, you know, every hour or something, just think about what you just did in the previous hour and you just make it. 10 to 14 days, I think, is a really good block of time to do it, because the first few days is a little bit like being on that really bad word that we call diet, where you're actually really good because you kind of, you know, you feel like you should be doing the right thing. And so you're a little bit more diligent. But after that, some little old habits will start to creep back in. You will be absolutely amazed at what you are really spending your time on as opposed to what you think you're spending your time on. When you've done that list, what you'll do is you'll get 4 different color highlighters, and you will go through and start to highlight what is actually work stuff. What is it you're actually doing on your business? Okay, so what is productive time in your business? Where are you sewing into relationships on another highlight thing? What are you doing around health and well-being? And what are you doing around that whole spirituality? And some of the other stuff then is going to come up where there'll be family commitments. There may be, you might have church or sports or whatever commitments that are there. You'll start to kind of recognize where you're actually playing and what's actually going on. The next thing then that you'll actually look at doing is what I call my 3 Ds. Do, delegate, and dump. So you'll start to look at some of the activities that are actually on that time audit and what it is that you have been doing over those previous 10 to 14 days. And you'll ask yourself the question, what are the things that take my expertise or give me joy? And they're the things that you will then continue to do. You might need to tweak to make sure that things are being productive if they're business things, for example. Okay. What are the things? The next D is delegate. What are the things that are on here that actually don't take my expertise and I can actually delegate? Now, I have to say one of the very first things I delegated was house cleaning. I don't get a lot of joy from it, I'll be really honest. I am not a domestic goddess by any stretch of the imagination. And so it was one of the first things to go. Now, some of you may say to me, but I can't afford to do that yet. Honestly, what I will say to you is look at, even if it was a case where you were to get a cleaner in, say, for example, and this is only, if it gives you joy, please keep doing it. But if it doesn't, okay, then what I would say, and Kira's smiling here, so I'm thinking that it's not going to get, might not give you joy now. So what you would do is, honestly, you'll find the money to do it. But what is actually more important, I remember my very first cleaner, Mary, Lord rest her, she's a beautiful woman who has actually gone to heaven now. But Mary would every Thursday would come in, and she would come in for 2 hours. And that 2 hours, this is 20 years ago now, so that 2 hours used to cost me $60. But I looked at it as an investment, because what she would achieve in 2 hours would take me 2 days between running around after little ones and trying to do what I was doing and that. And what I would do during those 2 hours was actually go to work on my business. So I actually, once I gave up work, I actually chose the Thursday that the kids still went into childcare. That was my day, my sanity day. I didn't have a mum or anything like that to be able to drop them off for some peace and quiet. So Thursday was my day. And so Mary would come in and I would go to work. I would basically make sure that I was putting in one-on-one appointments, anything at all, and then I'd go out for lunch with a girlfriend. I would come in on a Thursday afternoon and it was like walking into heaven, because my house would be spotless. I would actually stand and just look at it because I knew it wasn't going to last for long and that. But it was the best investment in not only my sanity but also my business, okay? The next thing that got delegated was actually the gardening and that. And so, again, I have not got green thumbs at all. So that was something else. But then the third thing that I actually started to delegate, which was another great investment in my business, was I got a personal assistant, like a VA. And so it started off that she came in for 1.5 hours once a week. That was, at that point in time, that was what I could afford to invest in it. So she would come in and do all of those tasks that I didn't need to do. Okay, sorting out flyers, doing some of my mail outs to customers and thank yous, because remember, this is a good few years ago, so it was before Facebook and emails and all of that. I'm really, really old, just so you know. And that's there was a lot of the stuff that I used to do. I would do handwritten notes to every one of anybody who ever held an event for me. My customers always got birthday cards and Christmas cards from me, and they would have to be handwritten. Now I use an online system to do it, but they were handwritten as well. And so she used to take care of a lot of that stuff for me. Again, I would then just, for some of the ones that I needed to make an extra little note on, she would push aside for me. But there were all those administrative tasks that still needed to be done, literature stamped and things like that, but didn't take my expertise. And so while she was doing that for that hour and a half, I was out making money. I was out, holding an event, or, going and following up with a new team member, or putting on training for my team. I was actually using that time effectively when, she was delegating. And from there, then it increased over time. And eventually it actually came that she came in one full day every week. And then she would do some little bits from home as well. So that built up over time though. So I started small investors. So do delegate. And then the third one is dump. Honestly, when you start to look at what it is that you're doing on your time audit, you will see that there's some stuff that you're doing that doesn't serve you at all. You're just doing it because it's a habit. You've always done it that way, and you don't need to. You could actually get rid of that task. Now, I remember one lady I was working with, and one of the things that we actually dumped off of her list was actually shopping. Now, that might sound strange, but what she would do is she would actually every single day go to the supermarket to get something for the dinner that night, okay? Which meant that there was probably an hour to an hour and a half that she would actually spend in the shopping centre every single day going and doing that. And it was not giving her any joy whatsoever. So we just made we changed just one little tweak. On a Sunday, she would actually look at what she was actually doing for the whole week, and then she would set her meal plan. The meal plan would go up on the fridge. She would go and do the shop. Her or her husband would go and do the shop for the week. And whoever was home first, she had older teenage boys at the time, and her husband, whoever was home first, they would start the dinner. That saved her about 6 hours a week where she would actually go, besides the money, because, each of us know when we go into the supermarket, I don't think any of us ever walk out with what we just went in for and that. So there was that. But there was a whole heap of time that she was actually able to get back into her life, that she was able to sow into herself. And she'd gone into real overwhelm because she actually felt that she had no time for herself. So a couple of those nights where she would, instead of going to the supermarket like she used to do, she actually would then go to the gym and actually be able to sow into her own well-being. So doing your time audit and then applying do, delegate, dump will actually shift you out of overwhelm and feeling like, your diary and life is actually running you, to you actually running it. Now, I don't believe in time management. A lot of people talk about time management. We can't manage time. We're all blessed with the same 24 hours in a day, but some people seem to get more out of it than others. That comes down to self-management, and that's actually what I've been talking about tonight. I've actually been talking about the fact that you get to prioritize and make decisions around what it is that you actually want to do. You get to decide, whether you actually go into whether you go into overwhelm or not, because we do what we prioritize. So if something's really, really important in our business, well, we actually get to be able to, to do it, or in our lives. We can either make excuses about the fact that we haven't got time to do a date night, or we haven't got time to be able to catch up with friends, or that we always seem to be working. But in reality, guys, when it actually comes down to it, what we're always doing is deciding how we're spending the next minute. We can take responsibility and play above the line, or we can go into blame, shame, and justify. And when we go into blame, shame, and justify, that means that we're actually handing our power over to someone or something else. And that self-management is actually about going back above the line and taking responsibility for how we choose to spend it. So for you mums out there, especially that have got little ones, and you sometimes might feel that you've got the little ones to look after, you still got the household that you have to do and all those things. I'm not discounting it. I've been there, walked that journey, absolutely. But what I will say to you is you do have choices about how you're going to do it. And I remember years ago, a friend of mine gave me this beautiful little poem, and it actually was around the whole thing about having a clean house and all the rest, and what will your kids remember. And your kids will remember the fact that you were able to have choices about being able to spend time with them. And so I got over that guilt early on, because even the times when I needed to go out and do an event, the times where I might have to go to, say, for example, get on a plane and go to conference and be away from my children for a period of time. What actually is really more important is the fact that rather than working 9 to 5, and so from them, I was gone from, say, 7:30 to 5:30 every single day. I would be able to have blocks of time where, yes, I definitely put my head down, bum up, and I would go for it, and I would work my business. But the payoff was that then I actually got the flexibility and the choices to be able to live an incredible life with them, where we got to share so many trips, so many experiences, have fun together, and actually be able to live a life that I'm really, really grateful for. Have them go to the schools that we wanted them to go to be involved in the sports that they actually wanted to be able to be involved in. So for each of you, as you make some decisions around how are you spending your time? Are you investing your time into your business, or are you just spending your time on doing things that actually are not going to add value to your family or your business? Look at the payoff on the other end, okay? So what we prioritize is actually what will happen. So for any of you who are feeling that you're in overwhelm at all, or you feel that you can't manage time, the first one is go do that time audit. Take responsibility and really take an honest look at what you're doing. Don't say to me, I know exactly what I'm doing, because honestly, when it all boils down to it, if there is some overwhelm there, there's something that's slipping into your schedule that actually has taken control of you rather than the other way around. So take some time to do the time audit. It's honestly, you're going to be going about your day, and you're just going to be making sure that you're noting it. And then sit down with maybe your upline, and that where you can actually go through and start to analyze it and look at, what can you do, delegate, and dump? What is it that doesn't actually need to be in there? And then move forward, doing the things that are actually going to pay you dividends in the long run. So I'd love to just, if anybody's got any questions or anything else around there that you'd like to ask me some questions on, that's just me sharing from, I suppose, the years where I've had to learn. So I did direct selling, dabbled in direct selling, I suppose, before I had kids, got serious when I had 2 under 2. And as I said, I've been around this for a long time now. They're now 24, 22, and 19. So if you've got any questions or anything else that you'd like to ask me, please feel free to. Back to you, Kira and Adam.
Thank you so much. So many amazing nuggets of wisdom there. Lots of things I'm going to implement. The basket, the surprise basket, that one is gold. Maddie is going to go off on that one. She's going to not stop talking about it all the time, though, I'm sure. Does anyone have any questions for Celine while we have her? There has to be some questions.
Stun them all into silence. They're thinking about their...
You know, Celine, it's so true what you say that, you know, how this business gives us choices. Today I had the most amazing day with the girls, or afternoon really, and it's like when I was a kid I always wanted to be able to do horse riding, but my mum couldn't afford it, and you know, she had to go and work to pay the bills, and I got to take my girls for horse riding lessons today for the first time, and it was the most magical moment and such great quality time that anything that happened outside of that time, my girls are so up for now because they know that Juice Plus gives us those choices.
And that's exactly right. I mean, that was the thing. That's why I say it's really important to share your goals. And it doesn't matter how little your kids are. Honestly, they understand. When there's something in it for them, believe you me, they understand. And I saw the posts on Facebook today, Kira. I thought it was just so cute and
so magical. I'm living through my kids.
I hear you. I know the feeling. But again, it gave me the chance to be, I was the girl guide leader. I was the netball coach. I was able to help at school. You know, Mick was the soccer coach. You know, we've been able to do so many things that I never thought was possible, to have the freedom, the time and the flexibility to be able to do it. It's just such a gift. So the short-term pain, guys, that you may feel at times is so outweighed by the long-term gain. It really, really is. You get to decide what you want out of this business because it's all there for you. You're seeing, I mean, you've got Adam and Kira there who are, you know, really and truly, you know, living the dream. They're walking and talking this. But you also get to see that on the flip side, they work bloody hard. They put their head down, they bum up, and they go for it. And that's what I love and admire about both of them. They're, you know, equally going out there and making it happen. So there are sacrifices, but gosh, the payoffs, those moments that you actually get to be able to, you know, have fun with your kids, to have all of those experiences. And both Cara and Shane have actually shared of events and had me in tears one time because I've never really asked, but they both shared about the fact that they don't ever remember the times when I was off doing events or whatever like that. They actually only remember all the good stuff. The fact that we were, either myself or Mick, were always there for school pickup. We were always there for, you know, on the side of the soccer pitch or the netball court or whatever. You know, they're the things, the experiences, you know, they'd always be looking forward to as they got older and we got into a financial position where they could come to conferences with us. You know, the first thing they'd ask was, you know, where's the next conference? So they could start planning. You know, they're still planning, but anyhow. So, you know, they would get to come along as well. So it is awesome. It is awesome. Well done, guys. Any other questions?
Celine, yeah, before you go, I've got Mike. We'll get him to unmute himself and you can ask away, buddy.
Hi, Celine. Just wondering, thanks for sharing everything.
Hello, Mr. Egan. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I was just wondering if there's anything you would do different looking back now. Obviously, technology's changed and made things easier for us, but is there anything you would do different now?
Yeah, oh, look, every day is a school day, as they say. You constantly learn. I think I probably, I would have got more structured early on. So I would have actually, there was early on in the thing, I felt that I had to try and please everybody. So I learned, and it was probably maybe a year or even a year and a half in, that it's actually okay to switch off my phone. So for example, things where if it was family time or if it was like over dinner time, there is nothing that happens in this business that is life or death. I can honestly tell you that right now. You might just think there is, but there really isn't. So if it was like, I learned then, for example, my phone used to go off once I picked the kids up and they were in the car with me kind of from 3:30 to 6 o'clock, my phone was off. And so I just, used to teach my team that they could leave a message if they wanted to, but I was not going to be answering calls during that time. And the same on my Sundays. And that, so it took a little while for me to learn to actually take control of the business rather than the business controlling me. So that will be one thing. I would have liked to have learned that early. What would be something else that I would do? Again, it took me a little time to learn it. I eventually did, though, is success leaves clues. Look at what others are doing and make sure that you are modeling that. Nowadays, guys, you've got so much technology that actually can help you, but it can also be a hindrance too, because you can fall into the trap where you actually allow that to control you. So, you've got Voxer going off, binging, and you've got Facebook binging at you and all the rest kind of thing. Make sure that you are conscious of your times when you do actually have that switch off. And then, as I said, there are going to be those seasons where you're absolutely going mad because you're going for a promotion. That's fine. Just make sure that they are seasons and there's that strategic imbalance rather than it being all of the time and that. So just making sure that you're taking control. So it's been a journey. I can honestly say, hand on my heart, I've never done it perfectly. And even to this day, but now I'm so much more aware. I became aware of when I would find myself getting into a little bit of imbalance and that, or overwhelm, and I would take the time, I would stop rather than trying to push through that. I would take the time to stop, analyze, and go, okay, what is it that I haven't put into my diary or into my schedule that actually best serves me? I hope that helps, Mike.
And Kenny wanted to share too. Kenny, you just want to unmute yourself?
Well, today, like you were just saying, I think it's okay to turn your phone off, which is all good. And I did that today. I switched me fucking thing. It's always going off, bling, bling, bling. And today I turned my phone on for a minute because I had to call my nan because she's in hospital and whatnot. And my phone went off. I had 4 inboxes and I decided today was rest day because I work out every day.
Yep. And
today was rest day from Juice Plus work and everything. And I had 4 inboxes. Can you send me prices? Can you tell me about the premium? Can you tell me about the essential? What's the family pack like? Do you get the chewy things for free? And I'm just like, why doesn't this happen every other day? I was having a break today and everyone's like, can you tell me about this? And can you tell me about that? Like, all right, fine. Obviously, JP does not want me to have a rest. I'm on it. I'll do it when I get home.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's just
so
and we've got one more Lauren Horton would like to share.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Lauren.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'll just put my camera on. I'm a bit sunburnt, so first hot day in Victoria, and I didn't put sunscreen on, so don't judge my red face. I find I get extremely overwhelmed a lot of the times, and I kind of shut down Stacks when I get kind of in that state. What's kind of your advice, I guess, for someone that does get quite overwhelmed? I work full time. I do work really long hours, and I'm really interested, like, in doing well in this business. So, yeah, what's some kind of tips you could maybe give us?
Yeah, okay. So again, a little bit like, even if you are working in that, a time audit is actually still really important because, you're still going to have those times. When I was building my business, remember I was working full time and I had 2 children under 2. So, I was definitely busy. That could be it. But I could, as I said, I could use that as an excuse, or I could use it as a reason why I wanted to make some change. And it sounds to me that that's something that you want to do. So for me, again, one of the things about building my business was I had a half-hour lunch break. Now I like my food, so my goal was that I actually had to do my calls. I had to do at least 2 to 3 calls and speak to some people before I could actually have my lunch. That way I was building my business. I could see a way out. So even though I was busy, I was actually busy being productive rather than busy being busy. And when you are working time, you've got to really make sure that you are not falling into the trap of just busy being busy, just kind of doing things because you're filling in your time and kind of, pretending to be working nearly. I know none of us mean that to happen, but if we're not actually really taking an audit, basically a stock take of what are the activities that we are doing, we can actually end up being busy instead of busy being productive. The other thing too, though, is making sure that you are putting in some time for you, even though you're working, even though you're busy. Honestly, there's time even for a 30-minute once a week that you just tell people, the phone goes off and you go do something for you. It could be go for a walk and sit on a piece of grass somewhere and just actually sit there with a cup of coffee being uninterrupted or whatever. Whatever it might be for you, you'll know what feeds your soul. And so for me, like it's my walk with my praise music in. Okay, that's one of the things that's really important to me on a daily basis, is just having that time to be able to just center and just listen to my praise music and just enjoy. And I'm ready to start my day once I've done that. Whatever it might be for you, find something. Okay, there will be something, Lauren, that will actually be able to kind of perk you up and keep you going. You are going to be in a busy season, girlfriend. Okay, you've got a job. Okay, you want to build this business. Okay. What I can tell you is that it's absolutely possible. If I could do it back when, I was excited when we got fax machines, for heaven's sake. Okay, so, so when we had, my mobile phone, my first mobile phone was actually attached to the car. It was a car phone and that. So honestly, if I could do it back then, you can do it now. Just make sure that when you are on, say, for example, social media, that you're on there to build your business, not to kind of, have fun catching up on who ate what when. Okay, you're actually there. Make sure that you're using the time as effectively as you possibly can. That would be the best thing that I can say to you.
I love what Linda says as well, that there's no Juice Plus emergency. And I think that really helped me because I was so overwhelmed initially with my phone binging all the time as well. And I really had to learn to put it aside and get back to it when it's, the right moment. And that people don't expect you to get back to them straight away. If it takes you to the next day, to reply to some messages, people aren't sitting there waiting for you to respond looking at their phone. So yeah,
it's like with I think on a call recently about conference, somebody said about getting away to for the kids or whatever like that, from the kids and the family, and how do you make it happen. And the reality is that if you were taken into hospital tomorrow and you were there for 5 days, you couldn't answer your phone, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. Life would still go on without you. Honestly, it really would. So yeah, you're right, there is no Juice Plus emergency. There really isn't. Yes, we want to be professional, we want to answer in a timely manner, but also teach people how to treat us. So if you make yourself available 24/7, people will expect you to be available 24/7. Okay, that's a choice that you get to make, guys. So just because you can work your business 24/7 doesn't mean that you should. So make sure you've got strategic appointments in that are for yourself and for your family that are in there as well. And then when you are working, you are working. Okay, when you're working that business, you're working that business. But then when you are with your loved ones, you are present in that moment and you're there with them, and you'll get that balance happening beautifully.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Celine. We have to run and jump on another training call. But thank you so much for your time. That was so many gold nuggets, and everyone's saying thank you. So amazing, as always.
And guys, this we've recorded this, so you guys, I think Selena will put it up maybe in the Juice Plus Australia page. When she gets around that, probably give her a couple of days to do that. And I know for me, like Jeff Roberti, guys, honestly, he often says, if you're prepared to do what others aren't, you'll live a life like others can't. So honestly, guys, I know it gets overwhelming at times, and it is a lot, but honestly, in what this will be in the next 2 to 5 years, you'll have lots of time in your hands. That's the great thing about this business. The bigger it gets, the less stress and worry that you have, and the more time you'll have in other times. So, time management is important. And thank you so much, Celine. You're so amazing.
See you all in Nashville.
Nashville.
Getting close.
See you
guys.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye. Bye.